on chapter 25, seek and you shall find. The last two items that we're going to see today is observe on the birds in the sky, which is quite interesting. And then do not wear yourself out for possession of gold. And then you should be able to start the next chapter, but I'm not going to hurry on that one because I think this observe the birds in the sky is quite important.
Yes.
All right, let's read it.
Okay. Observe the birds in the sky. 6. Do not accumulate treasures on the earth where rust and worms corrupt them, and where thieves unbury and steal them. Create treasures in heaven where neither rust nor worms corrupt. Okay.
With the mute.
Okay. Where neither rust nor worms corrupt, for wherever your treasure is, there is your heart also. Thus I say to you, do not be anxious about where you will find something to eat for the sustenance of your life, or where you will get clothes to cover your body. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Observe the birds in the sky. They neither sow nor reap, nor do they store anything in barns, but your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not worth much more than they? And who among you, with all his effort, can increase his stature by one cubit? Moreover, why are you anxious about clothing? Observe how the lilies of the fields grow. They neither work nor spin. Nevertheless, I declare to you that Solomon himself, in all his glory, was ever dressed like one of them. Thus, if God has taken care to clothe in such a manner an herb in the field, which exists today and tomorrow will be cast into the fire, how much more care will he take in clothing you, O men of little faith? Therefore, do not be anxious, saying, what will we eat, or what will we drink, or what will we wear, as do the pagans who seek after all these things, because your Father knows what you need. Therefore, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you in abundance. So do not be anxious for tomorrow will take care of itself. Each day has enough evil of its own. Matthew.
Okay, you can go ahead and read that item 7.
Okay, number 7. Take literally, these words would be the negation of all foresight and labor, and consequently of all progress. With such a principle, humans will reduce themselves to an expectant passiveness. Their physical and mental powers will remain inactive. If such had been their normal condition on the earth, they would have never left the primitive state. And if it were to become the Lord today, they would have nothing more to do than to live in idleness. This could not have been Jesus's thought, because it would be in contradiction with what he said elsewhere and with the laws of nature themselves. God created humans with neither clothing nor shelter, but gave them the intelligence to make them. Therefore, one should see in these words only a poetic allegory of providence, which never abandons those who put their trust in it, but which wills that their work alongside it. If providence does not always come to them with the material help, it inspires them with ideas with which they may find the means of freeing themselves from their difficulty. God knows our needs and provides for them according to what is necessary. However, humans, insatiable in their desires, never know how to be content with what they have. The necessities are not enough for them. They need the superfluous. It is then that providence leaves them to themselves. They are often unhappy due to their own fault and for having disregarded the voice that warned them in their conscience. and God allows them to suffer the consequences so that they may serve as a lesson for the future. Number 8.
Thanks. No, that. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
I think when you read this, the application of this to what we are witnessing today, the world around us, all the calamities that we witness throughout this globe, if not ourselves going through some of those, each one of us knows what we are going through. This lesson is very important to reinforce our faith, to reinforce our hope of a better future. I give tremendous amount of credit, and I wonder how they do it. For the individuals living in this world today, going through the news that we are having every single day. I was thinking about that yesterday with the earthquake in Morocco.
Mhm.
It seems like an avalanche of bad news that we are getting. It's like one after the other, one after the other. And we're not talking about one or two loss of life. We're talking about hundreds, thousands of loss of life. When you think that after Dalai Lama have stated so clearly in the 80s that war is outdated, is something of the history now, when we witness wars right now at this moment, we start to even doubt, and I saw that to John, is there really a loss of progress? Without what we have here now, without a spirituality, religiosity, I don't know how these people who do not have that can have a optimistic view of the future or even the present. And this lesson here bring to us the reinforcement that we must be optimistic, that you must have that trust that God knows what's happening. It's not God's fault, but God's provide. And if it in a trust in God, things will get better. We will find ways to overcome all this avalanche of negativity that are being bombarded with. I think that is the greatest what's seen today, what we live in today, the pandemics, again, the fires, the climate change, the excess of water here, the lack of water there, and to be optimistic without some faith, I give tremendous. I don't know how they do it. Even us with all these available, sometimes we kind of question it. And this lesson brings this back to us, reinforces it to us. It is a lesson of tremendous amount of hope and faith that, especially for the days that we are living now, it's very important. It's a lesson of serenity, it's a lesson of acceptance, it's a lesson of giving what we have to give, trusting the divine providence. It's a lesson in the certainty that God's provide in accordance to our necessities. That the God will give to us in accordance to what we need and our needs. Then the question is, what are needs? What is it that we need? Right? The needs varies in accordance to where we find ourselves in our evolutionary path. Right? Even if we start before we become a individualized intelligent principle, even before we start the level of spirits with the concept of the divinity, with the imprinted divine laws in our conscience, God already provides. God will provide to all of its creation, starting at the level of the minerals. God provide to the minerals the force of attraction and repulsion that allows them to maintain the harmony required in that kingdom. And to all living things, start from the a microorganism to us humans, we all biologically speaking animals. God provides the instincts, the instinct of survival, this instinct to seek to perpetuate our own genetic pool, i.e., the species. It's there, it's a providence that comes from the divinity. And when Jesus says that look at the birds of the sun, they don't sow nor reap. Yes, not going against what Jesus is saying. Yes, they do not sow nor reap, but they do. The words are extremely important and necessary for spreading of fruit trees. They're essential uh, with so many insects to spread wild trees, wild plants that they consume themselves. So they do sow somewhat. Are they completely aware of what they do? No. But they do work in a way to provide for themselves, to provide for the future generation. When a bird eats, I don't know, guayaba and spread the seeds in the field through its feces, it is working. It is spreading the possibility of more guayaba trees to grow and provide food for themselves and the future generation. And in this way, it is working. It is sowing, and the future they will, the future generation will reap. And again, that fulfills that instinct of survival of the self, but also its own genetic pool, its species. No one of God's creation will be be able to go outside of the created of the divine laws. And one of the divine laws is a lot of labor, work. So that even the other living things work somehow and provide some work and reap somehow. You go into the vegetable kingdom, and there is the instinct, the same instinct of survival, perpetuation of the species that makes itself grow, that transform sunlight and dioxide of carbon in oxidants was to breed, but more important, provides carbohydrates in many kind of things that is essential for our existence. They are working, they are providing. Now, for us, created at God's image, of course, not literally, right? God did not give us wings. God did not give us the ability to stay underwater or live underwater, swimming underwater, but provide us with intelligence. And with intelligence, we build airplanes. So we don't need to have wings. With intelligence, we build ships, we build everything that is required for us to move from point A from point B in a way that we could not do if it wasn't for our intelligence. So God does provide all the means for us to work, to all the creations to work. And because we have with God provided to us also the seeds of our intelligence, the seeds of our free will, and with our intelligence, make proper use of it in accordance with the divine laws imprinted in our conscience, then the concept of a divinity, the understanding that is something greater than us, and that exactly the divine laws imprinted in our conscience, using that intelligence in accordance to our conscience, we are able to build everything that we need to our survival, for the perpetuation of our species, to the perpetuation of our genetic pool. We could say that today, a great deal of the things that we witness is misuse of our intelligence, is misuse of our intelligence in disregard with the imprinted laws in our conscience, going against those laws. And if you go to the book, the Spirit's book, on the chapter of the moral laws, the very first question is, what is this? And the answer from the Spirit is, these are the laws created by God for your happiness. So this that was for to our happiness. So if we live in accordance with them, we're in a state of happiness. Once we go away from it in one or another aspect, we create problems, create difficulties to maintain or to reach that happiness. So we see the tremendous amount of fire everywhere. You see the tremendous amount of excess of water somewhere else. We know there is a global warming, there is a climate changes, there is the potential, the likelihood that we are responsible for this climate change. They were collaborating for that constant abnormal heating of the atmosphere, and we collect in accordance to what we are doing with great respect of following those laws that would not be happening. We have the earthquakes, it's the movement of tectonic plates underground that creates those earthquakes, and one will say, that's not our fault. That's that one now, it's all on God. He did. The tectonic plates are there, they have to be aligned. If the planet would transform itself into a planet of greater happiness, some of those calamities, natural calamities, will cease to exist. So in order to not have more earthquakes, those tectonic plates are going to have to be leveled. And the only way to level them is to shake things right now so those who are not leveled will become leveled. So earthquakes are going to happen. But God given us intelligence, we now understand where those tectonic plates are. We know the likelihood of those calamities to happen. And we do not use our intelligence to minimize the risk of loss of life in those areas. On the contrary, we continue to build buildings that cannot sustain once the earth shakes a little bit. We continue to build where we should not be building, or in disregard of using our intelligence in accordance to the divine laws imprinted in our conscience. So yes, there are factors that is beyond us that you have just to accept it as part of nature. Earthquake is going to happen, natural fire is going to happen, excess of rain from time to time is going to happen. What we can do using our intelligence is minimizing to us the possible suffering that comes from those natural phenomena, and make sure that we are not responsible to make them come more and more often. So God provides. And the lesson from this here is do not despair.
Mm.
Regardless what's coming, what's happening to us individually or collective, and now collective becomes the whole globe with the internet, with the advancement of our technology. Our neighbor is someone in Japan, in Morocco, in Guatemala, in Terra del Fuego, in Zambia, in South Africa. Our neighbor now is the entire human race, basically. Right? Around the time of Jesus, it was really the neighbor, the guy who lives next door. Um, until very recently, all that we know of humanity was someone who lived, I don't know, I don't know, 50, 60 kilometers from us, and we didn't know anything beyond that because there's no means of communication, transportation to read those. Now it's the whole human race. So whatever happens in Morocco or in Japan or in Guatemala or in Mozambique, we're gonna be know in a matter of minutes. So our neighbor now is the whole entire human race. It's very important that Jesus tells you do not suffer for what you don't have. You have this desire to be seeking for things that are superfluous in a sense that we may want it, that's fine, but you don't need. Again, I always make the use, you may want, you may be a automobile aficionado and would love to have a Lotus or a McLaren or a Testarossa. Yeah, that's fine. But if you don't have it, your Toyota or your Civic or your Nissan or your Volkswagen, you take it from point A to point B. Maybe it's not as much comfort, but we'll do it. And you may need the way we live our life today. So you may need an automobile, but you don't need a McLaren. And in some situations, the McLaren will not fulfill your needs to begin with, because they only see it's two and barely two, right? And if you have a family of six, what are you gonna do with the McLaren? So your need is not that. Your need is for a minivan, right? And if you out of ignorance choose to have a McLaren instead of the minivan, your family is going to suffer, and you're going to promote suffering upon yourself for not being able to use intelligence properly, to allow passions to overpower your needs. Again, it's our doing. So don't suffer for the things that you don't have. Because in general, we're not going to what's not in general. In general, God's provide what we need. And very often we suffer more for what we don't have than for what we need. We suffer more for not having the house of our dreams. Always dream to have a house, and then eventually you are able to buy your 2-bedroom house, and you are very happy and content with bedroom house that fulfills the need and the need of your family. But once the excitement of the new house goes away, now you want a 4-bedroom house because you're going to have friends to come over and you don't want them to sleep on the couch. You're going to have a 4-bedroom house, but can accommodate everybody. And then now we start suffering because of it. and you forget what you have that fulfills your needs. But your passions leads you to suffer for what you don't have. And in that sense, that to be more like the birds or like the lilies in the valley. They don't want more than what they need.
Yeah.
And they produce, they work for what they need. And very, very important also is in all circumstances, continue with faith. And in all circumstances, give what you have to give. Give what is within you that provides something to others. The birds, again, by going out and spreading seeds all over the place, they will produce more fruit trees, and everybody can take advantage of that work that the bird did. We may collect some of those wild grown fruits for ourselves as human beings. Other animals will share all that labor. Birds will sing to us and not only bring us a state of contentment. Who does not enjoy listening to birds singing out there? It is something that brings joy to us, but it also alerts animals of the presence of a predator or something. It fulfills something, some need that other species or even their own species may need. It provides, and it provides without expecting return. It provides without asking something back. The lilies of the valley, they may grow in the swamp, they grow in the dirty space. Doesn't complain for being in the swamp, doesn't complain to be in that dirty spot. It still produces a beautiful flower with beautiful scent that brings goodness, brings joys to all of us, and does not ask anything in return. Just provide of what it's able to provide without expectation of a return, without complaining, just there, growing in the swamp. Just give out of giving. Those are the comparisons that we can make with those other species that Jesus brings to us here now for us to make use. Not the idea of not working, not the idea as it has been so wrongly interpreted, because then it'd be even degradation of the laws, even go against what Jesus himself said in many other occasions, that we don't need to be self-sufficient. We need to provide to ourselves. And that's why the spiritual structure, you take literally, this word would be a negation of all foresight and labor, and consequently of all progress. If we did not seek to better our quality of life, if you just sit on a corner and says, I'm going to spend the rest of my life just digging my fingers on the dirt and collecting roots, and eat those roots raw as they are, we do not even have developed the ability to manipulate fire yet. It was for the use of our intelligence. At a time that is still the seed of our intelligence, that you are able to manipulate fire because you want those roots to be better digested, be easier to eat. And from the ability to manipulate fire, everything developed from there. Without that, we'd still be there digging our fingers on the dirt, trying to find some roots. If it wasn't for the development of a brain that require great amount of energies and proteins that we look at other animals and say, man, they can get meat from those other animals. Maybe we should learn how to hunt as well and use that skills developed to the ability to hunt and in a time that our brain was growing so fast that you need a tremendous amount of energy, they were able to develop the skills of hunting, and a lot of things progressed from there as well. So there is a necessity to work at all times. If not, it would be stuck pretty much at the level of animalia. It is because of the use of intelligence that work that we're able to move beyond the animalia and establish this realm of the humans. Animals, biologically speaking, but spiritually speaking, one level above the level of humans right now. So no one will negating work. Work is a law, the law of labor. We must work. Now, of course, we must work using our intelligence, using our free will, in accordance with the laws that is imprinted in our conscience for the happiness not only of ourselves, but the whole human race as well. Common questions, please? Comments? No? Okay. Number 8 then.
Yes. Number 8. The earth will produce enough to feed all its inhabitants when, according to the laws of justice, charity, and love for one's neighbor, people know how to manage the provisions it gives to them. When fraternity reigns among all peoples, as it does among the provinces of the same country, the temporary surplus of one will make up the temporary insufficiency of another, and each will have what it needs. The rich will then regard themselves as those who possess a large amount of seed. If they scatter it, it will produce 100-fold for themselves and for others. But if they consume the seed by themselves, if they waste it and allow the surplus of what they have consumed to be lost, the seed will produce nothing and they will not be enough for everybody. If they hoard it in their barns, the worms will devour it. That is why Jesus said, "Do not accumulate treasures on the earth, which are perishable, but create treasures in heaven, because they are eternal." In other words, do not attach more importance to the material possessions than spiritual ones, and know how to sacrifice the former on behalf of the latter. Charity and fraternity are not decreed by law. If they are not in the heart, selfishness will always stifle them. It is the labor of Spiritism to enable them to enter the heart.
Okay. So it's just about the time of Kardec also that there is that fear that because of the rapid expansion of human race throughout the planet, there would not be enough food to feed everyone. There was a theory, I forget the name of the one who came out with that idea. I don't remember. But that was very commonplace, this fear amongst the intellectuals, among those. That if the human race continued to grow as it was growing, that there is no way that the planet would be able to provide enough to everyone, and there would be famine, there would be calamities because not have enough food to provide to the whole humanity. And that the necessity of the spirits come and state very objective and clearly that the earth will produce enough to feed all of its inhabitants when, according to the laws of justice, charity, and love for one's neighbor, people knows how to manage the provisions given to them. And we know today that with advancement of the technology, of the farming technology, and know-how, we produce more than enough for every single human being on the surface of the planet to not only eat, but eat health. The problem is not of production, the problem is the proper distribution. And that's where the Spirit says, when according to the law of just charity and love for one's neighbor, people know how to manage the provisions it gives to them. God, again, going back always to what God gives us, because that's what Jesus is telling us. No, He gives to the birds, give to the lilies of the valley, therefore He gives to us. And if He gives to them, if He gives to the lilies, that eventually you'll die, you'll be burned. Can you imagine what gift God provides to us? God provides to us, again, created its image, not literally, please. The ability to create, the use of intelligence. But the use of the intelligence, the ability to create, must be in accordance to its laws, because its laws are created for our happiness. When we produce with our intelligence, we have to match that intelligence of production of more and more and more and more with the laws of just charity and love for one neighbor. And if we are able to do that, then again, not only can feed every single human being on this planet, but we can feed them well with all the organic necessities that one needs to get from food. The problem is not production. The problem is selfishness and pride, and the selfishness and pride that impede a proper distribution of the wealth. And if you do not do that, we'll become like the farmer that will produce in abundance more than what it can handle. So we will build big barns to accumulate, instead of distribute. And eventually, all that is being accumulated will be destroyed by worms, by whatever, bacteria or fungus or insects, or perhaps even that farmer will die and leave all that behind to be destroyed. So it's very important that we think in terms of producing. We should not be the rich that will regard himself to possess a large amount of seed. If they discarded it will produce 100-fold for themselves and for others. This is very important. This is not suggesting to us that we should sacrifice ourselves and go hungry to feed others. So if you have a good amount of seed and you use those seeds properly and you produce in accordance to the land, it will provide enough for you and to feed others. But if we don't, if you seek to consume it ourselves in disregard of others, we consume what we can, because we can only consume a certain amount, and the rest will be wasted, and that becomes our responsibility. That's when the hunger of our neighbor, it's our fault. Literally our fault. When our neighbor is hungry, we produce more than we can consume, and we hold on to that while our neighbor is hungry, then it's objectively our fault. Even if The neighbor also could have planted, but neglected to do so. Even if the neighbor was lazy, the my goodness, sorry. Even if the neighbor misuse his or her intelligence, misuse all the guidance provided, choose to waste the time doing something else instead of using those seeds. If the neighbor now is in necessity, will have the access and do not provide, it's your responsibility there. The neighbor will deal with their own responsibility or their own negligence, but we will deal with our own responsibility, our own negligence. That's where comes the importance of do not judge. Because if you're going to be judgmental now, I'm not going to give because he had the same seeds that I have, had the same kind of terrain, of soil that I have. Didn't do it, now it's his problem. I'm not going to share with him or her. That goes against of the law that just said over there of charity and love. It's not up to us to make the judgment. It's not up to us to penalize. Leave that to God. So only God knows. Only God knows what's happening to that mind, what's going on with that individual. We don't know. And once we do our part, we share, then we done our part. Whatever happens, we are doing in accordance to the laws, and we will be sowing to ourselves or reaping to ourselves the happiness of living in accordance to the laws imprinted in our conscience and the laws of charity, the laws of love. I think number 8 is more important. Number 8 is really the need of the Spirit to clarify to us at that time when the question of if we would be able to produce enough, they gave the answer yes. With intelligence, we'd be able to provide to each one on this planet. Now, you must to associate the intelligence with the laws of charity and love, so everyone will have enough. Questions, comment?
Yes, Elmo. Hi, Carol here. Thank you very much. Yeah, there might be a slight challenge though with the GMO seeds because I don't think that they produce the food, but they don't retain the seed. In other words, every year you have to re-up only through buying like the GMO seeds. So that's a challenge.
That's a challenge in terms of what?
Well, distribution, if you carry on saving the seeds for future years of planting, if you have to buy GMO products, you are not able to retain the seeds each year. So it is a slowdown of the process of sharing food.
Yeah, but even if we produce using the GMO and you produce an excess of what we can consume, we can still share that production with others who have less, right?
Right.
Okay. So if we continue to do that, we're still going to provide to those who are unable of produce enough for themselves. The issue of the GMOs of things, I'm not disagreeing with you. I agree with you. There's something that needs to be corrected there. But in terms of the production, regardless of what's being used, we can produce enough, not only for us, but for the for the entire globe, right now, today, using GMOs or use anything else, we are able to produce enough nutrients and good nutrients for the whole human race right now. Do we need to make some adjustments to guarantee that production for the future? Perhaps. Perhaps, I mean, we are far from perfection right now. Whatever you're doing right now is far from perfect. There's not a lot of things to be corrected. But only in the terms of production and distribution, for right now, we are able to do it, right?
That I am not certain of, but I guess I concur with you. I haven't researched that aspect of it, but that makes sense to me.
Yeah, it's not that everything that you're doing now is right. No, there's a lot of things to be corrected. There's a lot of things that you have to be, like the indigenous community, thinking of 7 generations ahead. I think that's the most eloquent idea when I heard of it, of the Northwest indigenous, especially the women would get together and make decisions of what to do. They not only think of what to do for now, they will do thinking of 7 generations ahead. I mean, that is thinking way ahead. If we implement that philosophy in the way you do things today, perhaps we will eliminate some of the mistakes that we're making today. But even with the mistakes, perhaps the mistakes that we're having today, we are able to produce enough for everyone if you distribute it properly. And then we will make the necessary corrections in the law of progress, that I'm optimistic that we will make the necessary corrections.
Yes, point well taken. I would say then the distribution, as you mentioned, as well as the management of it, of course, would be very critical at this juncture. So thank you for the explanation. Thank you, Elmo.
Yeah. Again, I think it's very important for us to understand that we're going to make mistakes along the way, even with good intentions. The important thing is to, once the mistake is recognized, to make the reparation, even if at a cost of us. You make the reparations. At one point, we are burning fuel fossil like crazy, and we did not understand the damage out of excess of carbon in the atmosphere could cause. Now that we do understand, we need to make the proper reparation. We need to use our intelligence in accordance with our conscience. And our conscience telling us something is wrong. There is too much carbon in the air. We have to minimize that amount of carbon in the air, if not to develop this means of removing some carbon of the air. And there are good individuals thinking like this, trying to do this. And that will happen. I mean, one time there was dumping all kinds of minerals in the waters that we didn't know how damaging it could be to that water, to the fauna of that water. But now we know better. Now you understand the negative consequences. You need to repair. You need to eliminate the dumping of those minerals in the water. We've made mistakes of ignorance. Now you make mistakes out of pride and out of selfishness. So if the GMO is a mistake, I'm not going to say flat state is a mistake. We need to repair now that we know better. And again, we make the repair thinking not only of us now, but think of future generations ahead.
Elmo, also there are communities now who are advocating non-GMO. However, they are retaining the original seeds, let's say seeds of corn, that would be non-GMO and keeping them in seed banks. So there is an alternative. So as you say, the intelligence on all levels is manifesting. Good solutions for everyone would be out there. So we're glad for that.
Yeah, it's a very difficult topic. It's very easy for us to say, "Oh, just stop, use the GMOs immediately." If we do that, perhaps there would not be enough for everyone. Perhaps, I don't know. I don't know. So these are problems that are very difficult. The use of plastic. Yeah, you have to apply the 3 R's now. We know better. You have to learn to develop skills to use less, to reuse, but we're not going to get rid of plastic. It's probably one of the greatest invention of humans. It's one of the best products we have invented. It's malleable, it's impermeable, it's light, it has everything that one would want. But right now, you're going to have to learn how to minimize its use. Is reduce, reuse, recycle, right? The 3 words. And when it comes to plastic, at least I can imagine another solution. The 3 R's, 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle. If we all individually, that's the problem. I always think of the government had to do it. We have always think of the neighbor has to do it. Where am I think of what I can do? How can I reuse? How can I reduce? How can I recycle? What am I doing this? What is my conscience telling me? When people just expecting that the big governments, the big companies, they need to do it, let's think of what I need to do first. And if everyone takes that decision individually, not thinking of the government or the big companies, perhaps we'll make it better for everyone else. Those are big, difficult problems that we have to take responsibility for that, what we are doing individually. And once we are doing that individually, then perhaps we have the right to go out there and demand that the big companies, the government does as well.
Yeah, regarding some plastics, there is some optimism. Some plastics are being used in building materials, as well as they're being recycled and used in garments and shoes. So, it's not the answer completely, but it's a start.
Absolutely. And they start is the recognition of the need of the 3 R's, right? That's the big start. That's the big start. And once you recognize that need, again, we have the intelligence to do all the things as we mentioning. What you mentioned the other day is the reuse, right? Let's instead of dumping it in the oceans and let the animals start develop all kinds of disease because of excess of plastic. Maybe we can put in housings, maybe we can put in clothes, maybe. Well, if you have the intelligence to go out in space, you have the intelligence to take pictures of constellations lots of years away from here. I'm sure you can manage a plastic management here if you put the best intention towards it. But again, as they say, it's not all that difficult. It's just very laborious. It takes a lot of work. And for those who are of goodwill, they will take the time, the energy, and do the labor required. All right, thanks, Carol. Those are very good comments, and opens the room for very important discussion for our days to live our lives in accordance to Christianity, in accordance to it's presented to us to make us reflect more and more to what's written in our conscience, so you can be more conscientious with our daily activities.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, we continue. Do not wear yourself out for the possession of gold. Number 9, do not fret for the possession of gold or silver or any other coins in your purse. Do not prepare a bag for your journey, or 2 cloaks or shoes or staff. For those who work deserve to be fed. Number 10, in any city or town that you have entered, inquire as to who is worthy to house you, and remain with him until you leave. When you enter the house, greet it, saying, may peace be in this house. If the house is worthy, your peace will come upon it. If it is not, your peace will return to you. Whenever someone does not wish to receive you or to listen to your words, when you leave that house or city, wipe the dust from your feet. Verily, I say to you, that on that day of judgment, Sodom and Gomorrah will be treated less harshly than that city. 11. These words, which Jesus addressed to his disciples when he sent them out for the first time to proclaim the good news, display nothing strange for that era. They are in keeping with the patriarchal customs of the East, where the traveler was always welcome into one's tent. However, back then, travelers were rare. Among modern cultures, the increase in travel has led to the creation of new customs, and those of ancient times are found only in far-off regions that have not yet been affected by much travel. And if Jesus were to return today, he would no longer be able to tell his disciples, set out without any provisions. Besides their actual meaning, these words contain a much deeper moral meaning. Jesus was thereby teaching his disciples to trust in providence. By having nothing, they could not tempt the greed of those who received them. It was a way to distinguish the charitable ones from the selfish. That is why he said to them, inquire as to who is worthy to house you, which means who is humane enough to shelter the traveler who has no means of paying, because such persons are worthy of hearing your words. By their charity, you will recognize them. As for those who did not want to welcome them or listen to,
Oh, sorry.
as for those who did not want to welcome them or listen to them, did he tell his disciples to curse them, to impose themselves on them, or to use force or coercion to convert them? No, but purely and simple to go somewhere else and look for persons of goodwill. This is what Spiritism tells its adherents today. Do not violate anyone's conscience. Do not force anyone to leave their own beliefs to adopt yours. Do not cast an anathema on those who do not think like you. Gather those who come to you and leave in peace those who reject you. Remember Christ's words. Formerly, heaven was taken by force. Today, it is taken by kindness.
Thank you.
Okay.
So this item, do not wear out for the possession of gold, is it's just a continuation of observe the birds in the sky.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's what I have mentioned already here, that God provide for the needs God does not God's not is not against, so to say, for our wants. Once our wants is reasonable, once our wants is to produce something good for ourselves and for others, it's even necessary again for the progress of humankind. Do we need to see the beautiful, absolutely beautiful photographers bring by those up-to-date telescopes of the death and the birth of new stars? Do we need that? Not for survival right now. If we reach the ability to take those pictures, to develop technologies that allow us to have those images, is because someone wanted. Is because it was created in the world of ideas, and someone was hard work enough to transform, to bring those things from the world of ideas and put in the world that we live now. And this promotes progress. This promotes intellectual progress. Some people you argue that you should spend time, all this resource to feed people and not to look at the sky right now. I'm not going to go completely against that idea, although I think that we should make sure that we can fulfill the needs of others before we seek to fulfill our wants. But unfortunately, the world that we live today is this way. The immense amounts of things that we use today that we don't even imagine, we use today in our household with a very low price for it, was developed from the idea of going into the space. There's a lot of things that we use today that was developed for astronauts to use. And when they see that, again, use intelligence, that it could be used in our common household, it was implemented for us to use here now. But it was originally developed for astronaut use. In our use, in our house, in our everyday lives, not even know it. So when we use our intelligence to seek things of more of a want than a need, once these things are reasonable and does not, of course, produce harm to anyone, it's welcomed. It promotes progress. We need to use our resources to better ourselves continuously. But of course, there is a limit. So do not fret, do not be anxious, do not have a consistent preoccupation with possession of gold or silver or any other coins in your purse. And when Jesus says over here, do not prepare a bag for your journey, or two cloaks, or shoes, or staff for those who work deserves to be fed. It goes directly back, be more like the birds in the sky, be more like the lilies in the valley. Jesus called the 12 and gave them authority over the demons and prepared them for the journey. The disciples, students, but not only any student, not only anyone who is sitting in the classroom and listening to the teacher, right? The disciples are the ones who sitting in the classroom, listening to the teacher, but seeking to implement those lessons with absolute fidelity. So the disciples, yes, disciples is a student, of a master, but it's more than just a student who goes and take a lesson because he needs to take a lesson. The disciple will take a lesson as he wants, not only to take that lesson, but wants to implement that lessons. So the Jesus tell them, just go and offer what you have to offer. Don't go and teach. Taking the social, physical, so to say, aspect of this idea, the the spirits make sure they'll tell us, yeah, at those days in that part of the globe, it was commonplace that a traveler would be received in any household, in any establishment, and a traveler would receive providence, whatever they need. Food, water, a place to spend the night, protection against the environment, against the cold, against the excess heat. It was a custom, and it is still in some parts of the globe. In the people that live in the Sahara, it is still a common place to receive. But as they say over here, the traveler is also kind of rare. There's not many people traveling from point A to B. The idea of tourism is something very recent. And when travelers would travel for some kind of necessity more than just tourism, right? And they were not all that common. So it was possible to have that tradition. Would become extremely difficult today. Now the travels are common, and then all kinds of reasons to tourism, those for pleasure, and it becomes more difficult to fulfill the needs of all the travelers, and they are extremely not numerous. So if in a very physical sense, that was possible at that day, it's perhaps not really possible to be done today. But today you have an industry that was created to provide for the travelers. Do this industry exploit? That's a different discussion, right? That we're not go through it right now. But more important than that, we need to go to the moral teachings, to what Jesus is really trying to tell us here. And when it says besides the actual meaning, the words contain a much deeper moral meaning. Jesus thereby teaching his disciples to trust in providence. By having nothing, they could not tempt the greed of those who received them. It was a way to distinguish the charitable ones from the selfish. When Jesus himself, and again, the disciples are the one who seeks to completely receive the messages, the teachings from the master, and implement it and live in accordance to those teachings. So when Jesus came to us, was a professional, developed himself as a professional, a carpenter, learned the skills from his father, made the choice to be a captain, following his father's teachings. But when he put himself those 3 years of teaching, going out and teaching, what is it that he carried? What is it that he had to offer? What is it that people could see in him or with him or on him that would attract them to him, if not the good news. No gold, no possessions, no fancy clothes, absolutely none that could inspire one to look at Jesus and to follow Jesus, if not for the good news, for the gospel. So it's obviously that upon teaching his disciples, he will teach them exactly the same thing. Go out, don't bring anything with you. Seek those who are willing to listen and pass what you have to offer. And what I am sending you to offer is the good news. What I'm sending you to do, as you're going to see in the next chapter, that perhaps I'm not going to start today, is to heal the sick, is to revive the dead, is to cure the is to cast out the demons. That's why he sent them out. Would they be well received everywhere and everyone would open their homes to them? Unlikely. And Jesus let them clear that no. And I want to make sure that by not carrying anything, not have anything else to offer but the good news, when they open the house to you, they are opening the house to the good news. Not necessary to you yourself, because you have nothing to offer except the good news. Once they open the door for you, they receive you in. They are open to the good news. And then will you say, let peace be in this house. And if the house is meritorious, your peace will be passed out to that house. But if not, your peace will stay with you. And that's very important. You give. If those are willing to receive, then you receive. If they're not, you retain the good news with you. You do not contaminate. You maintain your peace at all circumstances. If they do not open the doors for you, don't be alarmed. Don't be judgmental. Don't fight. Don't impose. Don't force the issue. Just shake the sand of your sandals and move on. Do not waste time. Do not throw pearls to pigs. There are those who are ready to receive the good news, because it's all about the good news. It's all about the gospel. That's the teaching that he came and he lived in accordance with the teachings to us. Besides being a carpenter, besides being able to produce, he took those 3 years to do one thing, to spread the good news, to spread the gospel. That can be summarized in the Sermon of the Mountain. Everything could be summarized in the Sermon of the Mountain. And he taught and told his disciples to follow his example, do the same thing. So therefore, and you see the sequence that Kardec creates over here. First, I have to talk about the birds and the lilies. First, the spirits have come with, yeah, but trust, providence, but you have to work, you have to do your part as well. Providence, you divine, you provide to the birds, to the lilies, and to all of us, but you have to make use of what being provided to us to produce what's good for us. Again, The birds have to fly, have to go from point A from point B using the wings that they have. They have to be able to know what's edible, what's not edible. They have to be able to build nests, and all of that, the ability to do all those things was provided, but they have to do it. God did not build the nests for them, but provide them the know-how of building nests. For us humans, being a higher level of intelligence, perhaps, it was given to us the ability of use our intelligence to build everything that we build, our nests, much more elaborated than the nests of the birds. Again, that could be contested. Did not give us wings, but provide intelligence to build airplanes and so forth and so on. To the disciples, he said, now it's time for you to do what I did. Now it's time for you to go and bring the good news to them. Don't worry about any kind of possessions, but that's for them. Are we at that situation? I think as a spiritist, we received enough in our bag over here that we can follow this. But of course, we have to adapt it to 2023.
Mm.
Of course, I have to adapt it to where we live today. And of course, if Jews coming today, I don't think you would say, forget about anything. When you go travel, don't bring anything with you. Don't bring shoes or walk barefoot. It's unlikely, right? So these are all metaphors that Jesus is giving to us now, that we can use us now, that when we go and spread the good news, the gospel of Jesus, that will be with one single objective, that we are not judgmental, that we are not imposing it upon anyone, that those who are willing to listen, they will find us basically. Again, today we have means of communication that allows those who are seeking the good news can find the good news. At that time, you have to bring to them, and you bring to them door by door. There was not even newspaper that you could put on the newspaper or anything else. The only mean was speaking face to face. That's why all of us have to walk throughout the whole Roman Empire at that time. There was the whole Occidental world at that time, and build churches everywhere there we go, because that's the only way to communicate. Today is different. Today we have all this technology, we have different means, but still, if you seek to be a disciple, the lesson applies to us equally. The purity of what we have to offer is the gospel of Jesus that we can share for those who are willing to listen. But more important, be certain that what people will learn from us is from our behavior more than anything else. It's how we do it our own lives more than what comes out of our mouth. That will be more significant if you seek to be a disciple. Any comments, questions? Not really don't have time to go to the next chapter. Okay, if not, thanks everyone for listening. And Kara, could you make the final prayer, please?
Sure, and thank you very much, Elmo. Wonderful, wonderful class today.
Yes, yes, it
Thank
has.
you.
Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we give thanks for the opportunity to be together again for our studies of the Gospel according to Spiritism. Chapter 25. Do not despair. The law of progress and the law of labor sets in motion the powers of intelligence. As we seek, we will find, but do not suffer for things you do not need. The earth can sustain all inhabitants if careful distribution and management of food and resources are used among all people and countries. We can use intelligence, creativity, and labor to reduce, reuse, and recycle. May we be more conscious and mindful in our daily activities, which affect the global community. Be kind to all and good stewards of the earth. Have faith and trust in providence. Do your part. Stay peaceful in all circumstances. And as we close today, we give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us, and for our loved ones, our teachers, the directors, the counselors, the mediums, workers, and those who are participating. We pray for inner peace and world peace, so necessary these days, and for all those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for SGNY and all Spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, expand, and be protected at all times. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to family, friends, loved ones, and coworkers. May we go forth now and remind ourselves to be beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and heartfelt charity. So be it.